Hey everybody, welcome back to the Culips English podcast. How's it going? My name is Andrew. I will be your host and your English study buddy for today. And today we are going to study with another news article. We learned with a news article around a month ago, maybe a little bit over a month ago, and I asked you guys if you would like to do this on a somewhat regular basis where we do a deep dive into a news article together, and the response was very positive and many people said that they would like to do this again, and so here we are. I've prepared another article for you. In fact, I didn't really do any preparation. The article that we're going to read is completely 100% the same that you can find on the website. It's an article by a writer named Keith Leswing. And so I'm going to put the link to this article in the description for this episode so you can go to the website and see it for yourself. It's a 100% unedited or unchanged document. And the plan here for this episode today is that we are going to read through the article together. I will read it to you so you can hear my lovely voice and my perfect pronunciation. And then I will break down and explain some of the difficult or useful English vocabulary that we will encounter in this article together. And so for our last article study, we actually read about a murder case, and we've got something completely different for you today. This is a tech and AI related article, and it's about live translation. So this is a new technology that's coming about, and it's really starting to hit the market in a big way now. And so this article is all about that. And I think it's relevant to us as language learners. You're learning English, I learn Korean as a second language. Maybe this is something that we don't need to do in the future. I don't know. It raises a lot of questions, and we'll talk about some of those questions while we go through this article today. And who do I think this episode is perfect for? Well, guys, if you are at the intermediate level and you want to hit the advanced level, or even if you're at like a high intermediate advanced level and you really want to take your English to the next level, I recommend this lesson for you. If you're a beginner, maybe you'll find it a little bit difficult. So this is really aimed at those intermediate, high intermediate, even advanced level learners who want to study with more advanced vocabulary and more advanced expressions. Some of the expressions and vocabulary that you maybe won't hear people use in their everyday casual conversations. This is a little bit higher level, so it's perfect for you if you're at that intermediate to advanced stage. And of course, in our bonus episode series, every episode comes with a free interactive transcript and a vocabulary glossary that you can check out just by clicking the link in the description for this episode. Plus, if you are a Culips member, then you will also get a comprehension quiz to test your understanding after you study with this episode. If you would like to sign up and become a Culips member, you can do so for an affordable price on our website, culips.com. You'll be able to check out all of the benefits and bonuses and special features that you can unlock as a Culips member on our website. So check that out and sign up and become a member today. And of course, thank you to all of the members out there for your support. We really couldn't do Culips without you. So thank you so much for all of your support. And with that being said, let's get started with today's article study. Here we go. Okay, so the title of this article is Apple, Google, and Meta are trying to perfect a science fiction gadget, the universal translator. And this was written, like I said, by Keith Leswing, and the link to this article is in the description for this episode, guys. So if you want to print it out or follow along on your end, there is where you can find the article. So I'm just going to read through the article together. We'll go paragraph by paragraph. And after I read it, then we'll go back through it. And if there's an interesting expression or word, or maybe even if it brings up a question that we should talk about, then we're going to pause and we'll do that. I'll explain the vocabulary or we'll talk about that question. So let's proceed with the article that way. The first paragraph says, for decades, shows like Star Trek and novels like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy have showcased fictional universal translators capable of seamlessly converting any language into English and vice versa. Okay, so a science fiction gadget, the universal translator that we've seen in science fiction movies and heard about in science fiction books for a long time, right? A universal translator is some kind of device that can translate between all languages in the world, maybe even all languages in the universe. So if you see some kind of device advertised as universal, it means it works with everything. Another common example that you'll see is like a universal adapter for power. So if you travel from one country to the next country, often the electrical plugs have a different size hole that you need to plug your device into, right? So you need an adapter so that you can change between country to country. And we call that a universal adapter. There's also a universal remote control, maybe one remote control that can control several devices. We would call a universal remote. So it's a good adjective to describe things, devices, gadgets that can control many things at once or do many functions at once. In this case, translating between all of the languages in the universe. And it says that it can do this seamlessly. Now, seamlessly means smoothly without any problems or interruptions. So it's going to be a very fast and smooth experience. Okay, next paragraph is just a sentence, and it says, now, those gadgets once limited to works of science fiction are inching closer to reality. Inching closer to reality. This is a nice expression to know, guys, to inch closer to something, and it just means slowly becoming real or possible. So you could imagine maybe a caterpillar. That's what I think of. Actually, we have this bug called an inchworm, and an inchworm just crawls very slowly, inch by inch by inch towards its destination. And so that's the image that I have. We had this like science fiction technical dream, and it's slowly becoming a reality. These universal translators are now here. Okay, so continuing. The next paragraph says, during its iPhone unveiling event on Tuesday, Apple included a video of many travelers' dream scenario. It showed an English-speaking tourist buying flowers in an unnamed Spanish-speaking country. The florist addressed the tourist in Spanish, but what the tourist heard was in clear, coherent English. So this is just a brand new device that Apple has introduced at its newest iPhone event. They just announced the iPhone 17. And at this event, they showed a demo of their new live translation product. And yeah, we saw in the video, I checked it out afterwards on YouTube because I didn't attend the presentation. But I saw this scene of an English-speaking traveler. It looked like she was in Spain, but some Spanish-speaking country. And she bought flowers from the florist, and she was able to do the interaction using this live translation feature, even though she doesn't speak Spanish herself. So she just was able to hear the Spanish speaking and get it translated into English right into her ears. And then she showed the florist her phone, and that's how her English was translated into Spanish. So Apple is promoting this new feature that they've developed. Here in this paragraph, we heard the word coherent, clear, coherent English. Coherent is a great word to know. It just means clear and easy to understand. So I think probably for you and for every English learner around the world, and for me too with my Korean, it doesn't mean we have to speak perfectly. Maybe a lot of us realize that it's very difficult to speak perfectly, but we do want to speak coherently. And that means in a way that is clear and easy to understand. Okay, continuing. This is what the dialogue in this demo video from Apple said. Today, all the red carnations are 50% off, the tourist heard in English in her headphones at essentially the same time that the clerk was speaking. Okay, so it was a real-time translation heard through her headphones. The video was marketing material for Apple's latest AirPods Pro 3. But the feature is one of many of its kind coming from tech companies that also include Google parent Alphabet and Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram. Technological advancements spurred by the arrival of OpenAI's ChatGPT in late 2022 have ushered in an era of generative artificial intelligence. Almost 3 years later, those advancements are resulting in real-time language translators. Okay, so let's talk about this paragraph in a little bit more detail because there is some interesting expressions here. First of all, this one is really cool. Spurred by, or sometimes we see it spurred on by. And the spur, I think we've talked about it on the podcast before, this expression. So maybe some of you recognize it, but a spur is one of those devices that horseback riders attach to their boots. And this allows them to kick the horse and to make the horse go faster, right? It like encourages or pushes the horse to go faster. And so here, when we say spurred by or spurred on by something, it just means, encouraged or pushed to go faster. So ChatGPT arrived in late 2022. And because of that, new technological advancements have been encouraged and pushed. And in fact, this ushered in an era of generative artificial intelligence. That's the kind of artificial intelligence that we can see in products like ChatGPT. So ushered in. An usher is somebody who works in like a movie theater or a concert hall and maybe even a sporting stadium. And they show the guests where to sit, right? They help them to their seat. So we use this imagery behind this expression to usher in something. And it just means to start or introduce a new period or change. So it's like almost like ChatGPT is the usher and it's saying like, okay, new technology, come in, come this way. And it's like helping them get set up and established. So ChatGPT is ushering in this new era of technological development and advancements. And one of those is these real-time language translators. Real-time means instantly with no delay, in real time. Okay, so let's continue reading through the article. The next paragraph says, for Apple, live translation is a key selling point. For the AirPods Pro 3, which the company unveiled on Tuesday, the new $250 earbuds go on sale next week. With live translation, users will be able to immediately hear French, German, Portuguese, and Spanish translated to English. Live translation will also arrive as an update to AirPods 4 and AirPods Pro 2 on Monday. Okay, so interesting. Live translation is a key selling point. A selling point is a very attractive, new, enticing feature that will encourage people to buy the new product. So one of the new selling points is the live translation feature. And you'll be able to buy these new AirPod Pros 3 if you want for $250. Kind of pricey. And interestingly enough, there won't be support for many languages: French, German, Portuguese, and Spanish translated to English. And I don't know if that goes both ways. It says French, German, Portuguese, and Spanish translated to English. But if you were to speak in English, would it come out in German to a German user? I'm not sure. Interestingly, also, I guess these languages are pretty similar-ish, right? They're all European languages and they all probably share, at least Portuguese, Spanish, and French are going to share a lot of similar vocabulary with English, and maybe even German and English have quite a few similarities as well. So we don't see like really different language pairs, right? You're not being able to translate between Chinese and English or Chinese and Korean or something like that. So that is kind of interesting as well. It's just a handful of languages, really. Okay, so let's continue in the article. It says, and when two people are speaking to each other wearing AirPods, the conversation can be translated both ways simultaneously inside each user's headphones. In Apple's video demo, it looked like two people talking to each other in different languages. Okay, so I answered my own question there. Should have just read ahead. It can be translated both ways, so you can go between all of the languages in both ways simultaneously. Simultaneously means happening at exactly the same time. So this translation between languages can happen simultaneously. So for example, If you are a Spanish speaker and I'm an English speaker, I could just pop in these AirPods. You could pop in the AirPods and you could speak in Spanish and I could speak in English and we could have a conversation back and forth in real time. Apparently. Okay, continuing with the article. Analysts are excited that the feature could mark a step forward for Apple's AI strategy. The translation feature needs to be paired with a new enough iPhone to run Apple Intelligence, Apple's AI software suite. Okay, so in order to use this new feature, you do need to have a newish iPhone, which can run their new AI, which they are calling Apple Intelligence. And the vocabulary that they used in the article here is nice, so I want to point it out. They said that the translation feature must be paired with an iPhone. So you can't just use the AirPods on their own. They must be paired with the iPhone. And this means used together, or they need to go together to pair with something. I hear this expression used a lot when talking about wine pairings. Maybe in the restaurant, you could ask your server for a wine recommendation, and the server might say, oh, since you ordered the chicken dish, then I would recommend that you pair your chicken dish with this wine. They go together well. They complement each other. So we hear it a lot when talking about food and culinary choices, wine choices, but also in this situation for the two devices, the iPhone and the AirPods, to work together with each other. Okay, continuing on. If we can actually use the AirPods for live translations, that's a feature that would actually get people to upgrade. D.A. Davidson analyst Gil Luria told CNBC on Wednesday. Okay, so interesting here, this quote from an analyst that works at the company called D.A. Davidson. I guess that's the name of the firm, the business firm, and the analyst name there, Gil Luria. I like his quote because he uses this word actually just as much as I do. He used it twice in the same sentence, and I have the habit of using this word actually a lot too. If you are a frequent Culips listener, you will know. Okay, so anyways, interesting, right? If we can actually use the AirPods for live translations, I think this is the big question mark here, is if the technology works well enough, if it's seamless, it's real time, then we're likely to use it. And I think it could be really cool. But if it doesn't work so well, then obviously people are not going to use it, right? So this analyst agrees if we could actually use the live translation feature with the AirPods, then people would actually upgrade to buy them. Translation is emerging as a key battleground in the technology industry as AI gets good enough to translate languages as quickly as people speak. But Apple is not alone. So there are other competitors in this space. Here, we heard this expression, a battleground, a key battleground. And as you could imagine, a battleground is an area or a sector where companies compete very strongly against each other. And just from reading the headline to this article, we know that Meta, Google, and Apple are all competing, and other companies as well, as we'll read about in the next section. Okay, so I'm going to read through the next section of this article. And guys, there are 3 sections here. So we're a third of the way done the article. Maybe I'll try to speed up a little bit. And yeah, let's look at the next section now. So it says, a crowded market. In the past year, Google and Meta have also released hardware products featuring real-time translation capabilities. Google's Pixel 10 phone has a capability that can translate what a speaker is saying to the listener's language during phone calls. That feature, called Voice Translate, is designed to also preserve the speaker's voice inflections. Voice Translate will start showing up on people's phones through a software update on Monday. Okay, interesting. So voice inflections are like the way that we change our voice. We can put the tone or the pitch up or down to convey emotion and feeling. This is what we call inflection. Okay, so if you have a Google Pixel phone, then you're going to have this new feature available very soon. Continuing on in the article. In Google's live demo in August, Voice Translate was able to translate a sentence from entertainer Jimmy Fallon into Spanish, and it actually sounded like the comedian. Apple's feature does not try to imitate the user's voice. So I think you're just going to hear like a regular Siri-style generic computer voice with Apple's feature, but with Google, they're actually trying to copy your voice and make the translated output sound like your real voice, which is interesting. A little bit scary, interesting. Meanwhile, what's happening over at Meta? Well, meanwhile, Meta in May announced that its Ray-Ban Meta glasses would be able to translate what a person is saying in another language using the device's speakers, and the other party in the conversations would be able to see translated responses transcribed on the user's phone. Okay, so these glasses, have you seen these glasses that Meta makes? They're like sunglasses. They look like a pair of Ray-Bans, but they have all these AI features and cameras involved. And so if you were to wear these glasses, then you could translate what a person is saying using the speakers in the device. I guess the speaker is probably located quite close to your ear. And then the other party would be able to see on their phone what the translation is. So you'll get the audio and they'll just get the text on their phone. Continues saying Meta will hold its own product keynote on Wednesday, where the company is expected to announce the next generation of its smart glasses, which will feature a small display in one of the lenses. It's unclear if Meta will announce more translation features. Okay, so we'll have to wait for Meta's keynote to find out more details about that. And guys, a keynote, if you don't know what this is, it is an important business presentation where new products are announced. And I think especially with tech companies, right? We have like an Apple keynote, a Meta keynote, a Google keynote. It's where they announce all of their new products and services that will be launching. And they usually do them once or twice a year. Okay, continuing with the article, 2 more paragraphs here. I'll read through them. And OpenAI in June showcased an intelligent voice assistant mode for ChatGPT that has fluid translation built in as one of its many features. ChatGPT is integrated with Apple's Siri, but not in voice mode. OpenAI is planning to release new hardware products with Apple's former design guru, Johnny Ive, in the coming years. The rise of live translation could also reshape entire industries. Translators and interpreters are the #1 type of job threatened by AI, and 98% of translators' work activities overlap with what AI can do, a Microsoft research study published in August found. Okay, so lots to unpack here. So ChatGPT also is a player in this game. It's not just Google and Meta and Apple, also ChatGPT and OpenAI are involved. And so they have these new voice talk features, voice assistant features, where translation is involved. And yeah, interestingly enough, they are planning to release a new hardware product with Johnny Ive. Johnny Ive is one of the famous Apple designers, maybe one of the most famous tech product designers ever. I think he was involved in all of Apple's successful products, from the iPhone to the MacBook to the AirPods and many more as well. So OpenAI has snatched or hired Johnny Ive, and he'll be designing a hardware device to work with ChatGPT, which will be very interesting to see what that's all about when that is announced. Okay, and then the final paragraph there talked about how translators are people who convert the written language of one language into the written language of another, and then interpreters are people who convert spoken language. So they essentially are the same job, but one deals with text and one deals with spoken languages. According to a Microsoft research study, they are very much endangered by the rise of AI. It's a threatened job. Okay. So let's read the final section of this article here. And this section is called Purpose-Built Translators. And it's a few paragraphs long. So let me read it to you. It says, In the past several years, a number of purpose-built translation gadgets have entered the market, taking advantage of global high-speed cellular service and improving online translation services to produce puck-like devices or headphones with translation built in for a couple $100s. So a purpose-built device, something that is purpose-built, it means that it was built with just one core function in mind. It's designed specifically for one particular job or use, purpose-built. So there are some companies who are making devices that are only for this live translation. Of course, Apple, Meta, OpenAI, Google, they're saying, okay, you can do this as one feature with our devices that can do many different things. But then a purpose-built device is like, no, this is one device only for this translation feature. And so, yeah, these devices, really, it's interesting. They're made possible because of global high-speed cellular service. If we didn't have these high-speed ways to access the internet, we probably couldn't have these devices. So it's very dependent on that high-speed data transfer and also improving online translation services. So other companies like maybe Google Translate, who have been operating in this space for many, many years. So some companies are making puck-like devices, which is like probably a little circle that looks like a hockey puck, or headphones with the translation built right into the headphones. Okay, so let's go to the next paragraph. It's a quote. It says, "What I love about what Apple is doing is it really just illuminates the fact that how pressing of an issue this is," said Joe Miller, U.S. General Manager of Japan-based Pocket Talk, which makes a $249 translation device that goes between two people conversing in different languages and translates their conversation in audio and text. Given that Apple has shipped about 18 million sets of wireless headphones in the first quarter alone, according to Culips, the company's entry into the market will expose a wider subset of customers to improvements translation tech has made in recent years. Okay, so yeah, more and more customers of Apple will be able to try out this technology, according to this, I guess, analyst company called Culips. Okay, let's continue. Not super important, that part. Despite Apple's entry into the market, makers of purpose-built devices say their focus on accuracy and knowledge of linguistics will provide better translations than what is available for free with a new phone. Okay, so yeah, I guess there's a lot of competition, right? This is a battleground. You have these big tech players, and then you have these smaller companies making purpose-built devices like Pocket Talk, that Japanese company. And then we're going to hear about another company here now called Vasco Electronics from Poland. And they're saying that, hey, we're specializing in this. We are like a translation company. We're experts. We're using linguistic knowledge and accuracy, and we know about the languages. We're not just using AI. We have experts involved. So that's their fighting point, I guess. That's like the weapon they're bringing to the battleground, right? To try and win the customer's confidence and ultimately the customer's support. So let's read the next paragraph here. It's a quote from the Vasco Electronics company. It says, "We actually hired linguists," said Alexander Alski, head of US and Canada for Poland-based Vasco Electronics, which released translation headphones called E1 in January and is planning a forthcoming model that can imitate the user's voice like Google's feature. "We combined the AI with human input, and thanks to that, we were able to secure much higher accuracy throughout all the languages we offer." That's a quote from Alexander Alski. Continuing, there is also home field advantage. Vasco Electronics' largest market is Europe, and Apple's live translation is not available for EU users, Apple said on its website. Okay, very interesting. Here's a good expression to know, guys. I recommend adding it to your vocabulary. home field advantage. This is actually a metaphor that comes from sports. So I think of baseball because baseball is played on like a baseball field, but it could be a soccer field or track and field, any kind of sporting event. If you are playing in your home stadium, then you have a big advantage. You have your fans there cheering for you. Maybe you could sleep the night before the game in your own bed and you have like a comfortable, just short trip to the field and you can play rested. Whereas the other team, the opposing team, they are traveling to your field. So maybe they had to sleep in a hotel. They had to travel a long way to get to your field. Their fans aren't there. So instead of having fans in the stands cheering for them, maybe they're actively booing them. And so it's a big disadvantage, right? So when we say home field advantage, we mean having an advantage because you know your local area better and you have the support of your home base. So yeah, interestingly enough, for all of the Europeans out there, you guys aren't going to have this live translation feature in Europe, which isn't it kind of weird? All of those languages were European languages, English, Spanish, Portuguese, German, and French, but it's not going to work in Europe. So I guess this could be good in Canada for like Quebec and English speaking Canada, and maybe in South America and Central America for Spanish and Portuguese. But if you can't use it between English and German, then where are you going to go? For Germans visiting America, English-speaking countries, maybe. But it seems like, it's not going to be so great if you can't use this in Europe. I think this is because of privacy concerns. So maybe Apple is going to work to try and figure out an agreement with the EU. But for now, this seems like a pretty big miss, like a swing and a miss, if you can't use this live translation feature in the EU. Anyways, we're almost at the end of the article, so let's read to the end. I'm going to read all the way to the end. Here we go. Some of the products being introduced by tech companies are less than universal and are limited to a small number of languages for now. Apple's feature is only available in 5 languages versus Pocket Talk's 95. Pocket Talks Miller believes that the potential of the technology goes far beyond a tourist ordering a glass of wine in France. He says that it is most powerful when used in workplaces like schools and hospitals, which require privacy and security features that reduce friction. And here, in this context, friction just means problems or difficulties that make something harder to do. Miller also went on to say, this is not about luxury, tourism, and travel. This is about the intersection of language and friction when a discussion needs to be had. And finally, the article ends with saying that Apple did not respond to a request for comment. So the writer of the article wanted to talk with Apple and get their side of the story, what they had to say, and they didn't message back or respond. So there's no comment from Apple. Okay. So yeah, it seems like pretty soon here, guys, we're going to be having a lot of options for live translation in earphones or headphones or other kind of devices. And I'm really curious about what you think about this. Will this change the way that you study English? If suddenly you could just use your Apple AirPod and communicate in your native language and have it translated into English, would this be something that you would be interested in using? I'm trying to think. It's an interesting question. I think for travel, it's probably really good for those kinds of situations where maybe you don't have time to invest in learning the local language. It could be pretty good, but I don't know. I'd have to try it out and see how good the technology is. I'm going to say that I'm skeptical for now. I'm skeptical, but open-minded, and I would have to try it just to see how well it works, but we'll see. Time will tell. Guys, I prepared some discussion questions here for us. And what I would like to do with these discussion questions, obviously we can't have a face-to-face discussion and go back and forth in real time, unfortunately. However, we can communicate not in real time. And you can do that with your comments. So you could leave your comments on our YouTube page, Instagram page, or Discord community. I really highly recommend our Discord community. It's probably where most of our listeners are the most active, but also on YouTube is a great place as well. And so let's go through these questions together. There are 3 of them. I'll share my thoughts briefly, and then I'm excited to hear your thoughts as well. So question number 1 is, would you use live translation earbuds when traveling? Why or why not? Okay, well, like I said just a second ago, I think I would try them out. I have to see how well they work. If they are truly seamless and it's not awkward, then I think, yeah, why not? Why not use them? Especially if you're going to a country where you just don't have time to invest in learning the local language. I think it's a little bit weird that you have to wear the AirPod in your ears, because to me, if I see somebody wearing AirPods, that's like a signal to not talk to them. Like they're listening to music or a podcast and they don't want to be disturbed, but then we're using them as translation devices. So I don't know. I think maybe we'll need to adjust our mindset to seeing somebody wear the AirPod and thinking, oh, they actually want to talk with me. I could also see it being quite awkward if it's not exactly seamless and exactly fast and very fluent translation. And I could see me using it for, going to a cafe or a restaurant and ordering food or something to drink. But for a deeper, longer conversation, I don't know if it would be great. I mean, I don't think I would stop and give up learning and studying Korean if suddenly I had a perfect translator in my ears with these AirPods. No, I just couldn't see it being good enough yet. Maybe I'm biased because I love language learning, and I'd probably keep going even if it worked perfectly, because it's just so interesting and fascinating to me to study another language and the benefits we get cognitively, and just the insights into the culture and the way different people from around the world think. We can learn about this through language, so I wouldn't stop. But I don't know how much I would use it. I'd have to try. Very vague answer. I will say that the last time I was in Japan, I was waiting in line at a restaurant, and the people in front of me in line, they were from China, and they were trying to communicate with the restaurant staff, and the restaurant staff were using a kind of like, I guess it was a purpose-built translator, some kind of device, maybe made by a Japanese company. And then the Chinese customers, the tourists, they were using their smartphones and they had a Chinese app, and they were trying to go back and forth communicating. And they were throwing in a little English as well. And it was just a mess. I witnessed it firsthand, trying to translate between Japanese and Chinese using 2 different devices. And it was slow, it was awkward, and I don't think anybody was satisfied in the end. I have no idea what they were talking about, but I imagine it's not something super complicated. It's probably a question about the menu or, how long it will take to get a table. And it was just really awkward and didn't work very well at all. So I am very skeptical about how well these devices could work, especially in between languages that are very, very different and more complicated than, say, French and English. Okay, next discussion question. Number 2, how might real-time translation change jobs and communication? Well, in a big way, right? We read about in the article how translators and interpreters, their line of work is in danger. Maybe English teachers and language teachers, maybe our line of work is in danger as well. It's something that I haven't ignored. I am concerned about, to be honest with you. We'll have to see. And I could think of many other jobs, any kind of international business, right? If you only need to use English for communicating with one client or for making a quick presentation or something, maybe this would be good enough for just like checking the box and making sure that you can finish a short presentation with a client or a short business meeting. If you don't really have to go into a deep philosophical conversation that goes for a long, long time, it's just like a standard, simple, straightforward business meeting to close a deal. Hey, maybe it could work. I don't know. So I think definitely it could be a disruptor, meaning that it could change a lot of things. Okay, and question 3. Do you think technology can ever translate perfectly? What might it miss? Who's to say what the future will hold? You never know what will happen in the future, but I don't think it could do it perfectly. I think language is always changing, always updating. There are always new things to talk about, new developments, new pop culture references, new celebrities, new songs, new things that people chat about. And unless the technology is really updated daily, then it's probably going to miss some things. But I think we can get enough coverage, probably like 95% coverage, where it could make sense. And yeah, there's always going to be something lost in translation, right? I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. I think we'll always have something that's lost in translation a little bit, but that's what makes life and languages interesting. So I think I'm okay with that. All right, guys. So those are my quick and dirty answers here to these questions. And wow, I've gone on for a long time. This could be a brand new world record for the longest bonus episode ever. But like I said, I wanted to jump into this article, get into the nitty gritty with you. I really like this kind of deep study, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you needed to spend a little bit of time and go through it part by part by part, that is okay. And if you need to go back and listen to it again, hey, that is okay too. We can't always one and done it, right? Just listen once and then perfectly understand everything. So if you want to go back and study with this episode again, feel free to do that. But for now, I'm going to take off. So thank you so much for studying with me today. Please take care, and I'll catch you in the next Culips episode. Until then, bye-bye.